We're live at the scene where investigators are currently examining the area. Police have not yet released any details.
It was a quiet Tuesday morning in Hopewell, Pennsylvania, when the 911 call came through. Detective Joe Dawson, a man known for his dedication and service, was found dead in his patrol car. No signs of a struggle, no weapons, just a lifeless body in a quiet neighborhood. Was it murder or something more? What really happened to Dawson, a man everyone trusted? As dawn broke over the small town, the serene landscape was shattered by the urgency of sirens. The sun cast a gentle light on the streets of Hopewell, a town where everyone knew one another, and news spread quickly. When news of Dawson's death broke, disbelief rippled through the community. This was a man who had spent over 15 years serving as a protector, a former Marine who had earned the respect of his peers and the love of his family. Dawson's legacy was etched into the fabric of the town. He was a devoted husband to Clara, a father to Elliot and Lily, and a figure of unwavering support for neighbors in times of need. His sudden death left a gaping void, transforming the landscape of Hopewell from tranquil to tumultuous. The community was in shock, grappling with the loss of a beloved officer. The crime scene presented a perplexing mystery. Dawson's patrol car was found parked on a side street, away from his usual route. The absence of any signs of struggle only deepened the enigma surrounding his death. His weapon remained holstered undisturbed, adding to the confusion. In a town where law enforcement was synonymous with safety, this incident posed unsettling questions. Was it an isolated act of violence, or was there something more sinister at play? As detectives began to piece together the events leading to Dawson's death, the investigation revealed a troubling lack of evidence. No witnesses came forward, and the neighborhood remained eerily quiet. Residents who had admired Dawson were now left to wonder who could harbor such animosity toward a man known for his kindness and integrity. The initial investigation efforts were met with frustration. Officers swept the area, searching for clues, but the scene offered little in the way of answers. Families in Hopewell gathered, exchanging stories of the officer who had devoted his life to protecting them. The sentiment was universal. Dawson was a man of honor, a figure no one could imagine being targeted. In the days that followed, the community's grief transformed into anxiety. Rumors began to circulate, and the once close-knit town felt increasingly fragmented. As fear settled in, the question loomed larger. Who would want to harm such a reputable figure? The lack of clarity fed a growing sense of distrust. As the narrative unfolded, Dawson's reputation became a focal point. His colleagues spoke of his unwavering commitment, recounting stories of his willingness to go above and beyond the call of duty. He was not just a police officer, he was a mentor, a neighbor, and a friend. The town mourned not just the loss of an officer but the loss of a protector. But as the investigation continued, the absence of definitive answers heightened the suspense. Was Dawson's death a tragic accident, or was it a deliberate act? The police faced mounting pressure to provide clarity, but the silence surrounding the case was deafening. The community's desire for justice grew stronger, but the path to uncovering the truth was shrouded in uncertainty. The calls for answers intensified. Those who knew Dawson demanded justice, fueled by a sense of betrayal. The investigation was not just about solving a crime, it was about restoring faith in the system that had failed to protect one of its own. The stakes were high, and the community was restless. As the chapter concluded, a haunting question lingered in the air. Could the truth behind Dawson's death be revealed? The pieces of the puzzle were scattered, and the investigation was just beginning. The shadows of uncertainty loomed large over Hopewell, and the answers were still out of reach. What would it take to uncover the reality behind the tragic loss of a man who meant so much to so many? The search for truth had only just begun, and the implications of what lay ahead would shake the very foundation of this close-knit community. Hopewell's law enforcement was rocked by the death of one of their own, but the investigation quickly hit a dead end. Just when they thought they were getting closer to answers, something strange happened. Detective Frank Daniels, Dawson's partner and longtime friend, seemed oddly eager to take control of the case. In the wake of Dawson's shocking death, the police department assembled a team to investigate. However, the initial days were marked by frustration. There were no solid leads or physical evidence to work with. Investigators scoured the crime scene, but it revealed little more than the tragic reality of a dedicated officer's untimely demise. No signs of a struggle, no witnesses, and no clear motive. The tight-knit community was left reeling, anxious for answers that would not come. Detective Frank Daniels, visibly shaken yet determined, took the lead in the investigation. He was not only a colleague but also a close friend of Dawson's. As he reviewed Dawson's case files, a sense of urgency gripped him. Yet, his behavior raised eyebrows. Daniels pushed the investigation forward with an intensity that struck some as peculiar. Would someone so closely tied to the victim act so assertively if they were also hiding something? The tension in the department was palpable. Officers who had once trusted Daniels now found themselves questioning his motives. His insistence on keeping the investigation moving felt rushed. Was he genuinely seeking justice for his friend, or was there something more at play? Whispers of doubt spread through the precinct and the community began to notice. As the investigation continued, a significant clue surfaced. A phone record indicated that Dawson made a last-minute call to an unknown number just before his death. The timing was alarming. Who was this person, and what information could they provide? This connection prompted detectives to shift their focus. The urgency to track down the mysterious number intensified as it became clear that it held the potential to unlock the truth behind Dawson's death. Investigators launched an effort to trace the call. They contacted phone service providers, seeking to identify the owner of the number. Meanwhile, Daniels remained at the forefront, his demeanor oscillating between grief and determination. The pressure to solve the case weighed heavily on him. Was he feeling the burden of his friend's legacy, or was he grappling with secrets of his own? The town of Hopewell continued to mourn Dawson's loss. Residents gathered, sharing stories of the man who dedicated his life to serving and protecting them. A palpable sense of unease lingered in the air. As whispers of the investigation spread, the community grew restless. They wanted answers, but the police were struggling to provide them. In the midst of this turmoil, Daniel's anxiousness became increasingly apparent. During police briefings, his hands trembled as he flipped through the case files. His focus seemed divided, and moments of distraction were noted by his colleagues. The question on everyone's mind: could Daniels be hiding something, or was he simply overwhelmed by the magnitude of the tragedy? As the investigation unfolded, the growing tension within the police department became a reflection of the community's uncertainty. Dawson was not just another officer. He was a beloved figure whose death left a profound void. The stakes had risen, and with them, the urgency to uncover the truth. Days passed, and the trail of the mysterious phone number grew colder. Investigators were met with dead ends and frustration mounted. The lack of evidence was disheartening. Hopewell felt the weight of grief and confusion, a town desperate for resolution. Families who had relied on Dawson's protection now found themselves grappling with fear and uncertainty. In a pivotal moment, the investigation team received a breakthrough. A connection to the phone number was finally established, leading them to a name that would send shockwaves through the department. This individual had ties to the criminal underworld, a dangerous figure whose association with Dawson raised grave concerns. The implications were staggering. Had Dawson's inquiries into this network put him in harm's way? As the investigation intensified, the narrative shifted. Who was this individual, and how were they linked to Dawson's last moments? This new lead promised the potential for answers, but also shattered the illusion of safety that had long enveloped Hopewell. The community braced itself for revelations that could change everything. As the chapter drew to a close, the tension reached a breaking point. The truth was inching closer, but so too was the danger that came with it. The investigation had transformed from a pursuit of justice into a race against time, as the shadows of the past began to close in. Would they uncover the truth before it was too late? The stakes had never been higher, and the answers they sought were anything but straightforward. What if Dawson's death wasn't a random attack? What if the man everyone trusted had secrets of his own? As the investigation digs deeper, an old buried secret resurfaces, leading investigators to a dangerous criminal from Dawson's military past. Could Dawson's old enemies be the key to his murder? Dawson's history as a Marine was marked by covert operations that took him into the heart of criminal enterprises. He was no stranger to perilous missions, often working in environments where every choice could mean the difference between life and death. During these operations, he encountered dangerous adversaries, individuals whose criminal activities spanned continents and whose reach was long and unforgiving. As investigators sifted through Dawson's background, they stumbled upon a troubling revelation. He had previously dismantled a criminal syndicate involved in trafficking and organized crime. This syndicate had been a formidable force, with ties that extended well beyond the borders of Pennsylvania. The timing of Dawson's death raised a chilling question. Had these old enemies resurfaced, seeking retribution for past grievances? Flashbacks revealed Dawson in intense moments, navigating hostile territories, engaging with shadowy figures, and sealing silent deals that would forever alter the lives of countless individuals. These images paint a man who understood the weight of his actions, both on and off the battlefield. With each operation, he made enemies who would not easily forget. The investigation began to draw connections between Dawson's military past and the present circumstances surrounding his death. A criminal syndicate that had once been dismantled was now believed to be regaining power, and this resurgence coincided ominously with Dawson's final days. It became increasingly apparent that the investigation's focus needed to shift. The more they uncovered, the clearer it became. Dawson's murder could be linked to the very enemies he had once sought to destroy. As the police delved deeper into Dawson's military records, they uncovered a series of classified operations that hinted at the depth of his involvement with the syndicate. He had worked under the radar, engaging in missions that were rarely documented. These missions, however, made him a significant target for those he had opposed. The stakes were mounting as investigators pieced together the puzzle of his past. In a shocking turn, an unexpected lead emerged. A series of phone records revealed a last-minute call Dawson had made hours before his death. The number belonged to a known associate of the criminal syndicate, a person whose reputation was steeped in secrecy and deception. This connection raised alarms. Was Dawson reaching out for help, or was he entangled in something far more dangerous than anyone realized? The investigation team intensified their efforts to track down this associate, each moment threaded with urgency. As they pursued the lead, tensions within the department began to rise. Detective Frank Daniels, still grappling with his partner's death, found himself increasingly isolated as the pressure mounted. Questions surrounding his involvement grew louder, and the shadow of suspicion loomed over him like a dark cloud. In the quiet of his office, Daniels scanned through Dawson's files, his hands trembling slightly as he turned the pages. There was a palpable sense of unease in the air, a feeling that the truth was lurking just out of sight. He had lost his best friend, but the weight of the investigation pressed heavily on him, raising doubts about his role and the choices he had made. As the investigation progressed, the pieces began to fit together, revealing a narrative filled with danger, betrayal, and desperation. The more they learned about the criminal syndicate's resurgence, the clearer it became that Dawson had not only been a target, but a potential threat to their operations. His recent inquiries into the syndicate had put him on a collision course with the very people he had once fought against. But the question remained, who had orchestrated this deadly game? With Dawson's past now intertwined with his death, the investigation faced a daunting challenge. As they navigated the murky waters of corruption and crime, they were left to wonder, could the answers lie not just in the past, but among those who had once stood beside him? With each revelation, the story deepened, pulling the audience into a web of intrigue. Dawson's military secrets, once buried beneath layers of duty and honor, were now the focus of a complex investigation that threatened to expose the very foundations of trust in Hopewell. What they didn't know was that the next twist would change everything. As the investigation continued to unfold, it would become clear that the truth was not only more complicated than they had imagined, but also far more dangerous. The shadows of the past were closing in, and Dawson's legacy hung in the balance. Would the truth finally emerge, or would it be buried once more in the silence of deceit? Just when investigators thought they were getting closer, an unexpected twist changed everything. The ballistics report returned, and what it revealed about the weapon used to kill Dawson left everyone stunned. The weapon wasn't registered to anyone in the department or anyone in town. Where did it come from? Forensic technicians pored over the evidence, carefully analyzing the bullet recovered from Dawson's body. The grim reality set in. The gun used in his murder did not match any police-issued firearms. Each test confirmed the unsettling truth. This weapon had no ties to the Hopewell Police Department, raising urgent questions about Dawson's demise. How could an officer be killed with a weapon that had no known owner? The investigation team faced a dilemma. This new lead opened up more questions than answers, drawing them into a darker narrative. The ballistics report indicated that the weapon was linked to a criminal syndicate that Dawson had previously targeted during his time as a Marine. The connection to his past made the stakes even higher, and investigators wondered if Dawson's inquiries had put him in danger. Detective Frank Daniels, already under scrutiny, found himself increasingly on edge. With the investigation taking a turn that implicated a criminal organization, suspicions around his own involvement began to mount. Investigators started questioning whether Daniels had been part of a cover-up or if he had deeper ties to the syndicate than anyone had realized. As the investigation progressed, the team worked tirelessly to track down the origins of the weapon. Leads were pursued, and connections were made, but the deeper they delved, the more complex the case became. Each discovery seemed to unearth more layers of deception and intrigue. The very foundation of trust within the police department was beginning to crack, and the pressure to uncover the truth intensified. The community clamored for answers. News of the weapon's origins circulated, and once again, Hopewell found itself gripped by fear and uncertainty. The townspeople were desperate for clarity, but the reality was that the investigation had just opened a Pandora's box of potential threats. What had begun as a quest for justice for Dawson now felt like a descent into a web of criminal activity that extended far beyond the confines of their small town. The implications of the syndicate's involvement raised alarming questions. Had Dawson been targeted for his past actions? Had he inadvertently stirred a violent response from those he had once fought against? As the chapter concluded, the tension reached a crescendo. The investigation was not merely about finding a murderer. It was about exposing a network of crime that had infiltrated the very fabric of Hopewell. The detectives were racing against time, knowing that the truth could lead them down a perilous path. The stakes were higher than ever, and the possibility of uncovering a larger conspiracy loomed ominously on the horizon. The walls closed in on Detective Frank Daniels, and he finally cracked. But the truth he revealed was more complicated than anyone imagined. The real killer wasn't who everyone thought it was. The syndicate's grip on Hopewell ran much deeper than anyone could have guessed. In a dimly lit interrogation room, Daniels sat across from detectives, his demeanor shifting under the weight of their questions. As the tension in the room escalated, he broke down, admitting he had been manipulated by the criminal syndicate. He swore he hadn't killed Dawson, but the true mastermind was revealed to be Captain David Wells, a high-ranking officer in Hopewell's police department. The revelation sent shockwaves through the room. How could someone in such a trusted position orchestrate such a heinous act? As the investigation unraveled, detectives worked to connect the dots. Wells had covertly collaborated with the syndicate, using his authority to shield their operations from scrutiny. The motivation was clear. Dawson had been getting too close to uncovering the truth about Wells's involvement. To protect himself, Wells had orchestrated Dawson's murder, using Daniels as an unwitting pawn in a larger game of deception. The implications of this betrayal were staggering. Daniels' emotional turmoil reflected the confusion and anger felt by the community. Was he truly a victim of circumstance, or had he played a more significant role in the conspiracy? The lines between right and wrong blurred as the investigation took on a life of its own. As the chapter reached its climax, the tension was palpable. Wells was arrested, but the fallout from his actions would be felt throughout Hopewell. The community grappled with the reality that the very institutions meant to protect them had been compromised. Trust in law enforcement was shattered, replaced by skepticism and fear. Daniels confronted the truth of his involvement. The emotional weight of his confession hung heavily in the air, leaving lingering questions about loyalty, integrity, and justice. Was he merely a victim of manipulation, or had he willingly participated in a cover-up that cost his friend his life? The final moments of this chapter left viewers on edge, desperate for answers. The investigation had taken a dark turn, and the implications of Wells' betrayal raised new concerns. Would the community ever recover from the depths of this corruption? The search for truth had only just begun. The trial begins, and the courtroom is filled with tension. But what happens next shocks everyone. The true extent of Captain Wells' betrayal is revealed, and the impact on the town is felt deep in their bones. As the courtroom filled with spectators, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. Clara Dawson sat in the front row, her eyes filled with tears as she prepared to testify. The stakes were high, and the community held its breath, waiting for justice to be served. Daniels took the stand, his voice trembling as he recounted his coerced involvement in the cover-up. He described the manipulation he endured, providing a chilling account of how he had been drawn into the web of deceit. As the trial unfolded, shocking revelations came to light. The prosecution laid bare Wells' extensive ties to the syndicate, detailing how he had exploited his position to shield their illicit activities. The evidence was damning, and the courtroom echoed with gasps as the full scope of Wells's betrayal became clear. The community's shock morphed into anger as they realized how deeply the corruption had infiltrated their lives. In a pivotal moment, Clara Dawson took the stand. Her emotional testimony about the loss of her husband resonated throughout the room. She spoke of Dawson's commitment to the community and how his death had shattered their family. The weight of her grief was palpable, reminding everyone of the personal toll this tragedy had taken. As the trial progressed, the tension mounted. The jury listened intently as the prosecution presented compelling evidence, while the defense struggled to paint Wells as a victim of circumstances. The courtroom drama unfolded like a gripping thriller, each revelation adding layers to the unfolding narrative. Finally, the moment arrived. The jury returned with their verdict. Captain Wells was found guilty of murder and corruption. As the gavel struck, a wave of relief washed over the community. Justice had been served, but the emotional scars would take time to heal. Wells was sentenced to life in prison, marking an end to a chapter of betrayal that had rocked Hopewell to its core. As the chapter concluded, the community gathered to honor Dawson's legacy. Memorials were held and stories were shared about the man who devoted his life to protecting others. Even as justice was served, a lingering question remained. Could there be more corruption left uncovered in Hopewell? The shadows of doubt still loomed, hinting that the truth might yet reveal itself in unexpected ways. Hopewell slowly starts to heal, but Dawson's death left scars that may never fade. His family moves on, but the town will never be the same. In the aftermath of the trial, the community began to rebuild. Clara Dawson visited her husband's grave with their children, Elliot and Lily, placing flowers and sharing memories. The act of remembrance was bittersweet, a reflection of their love and loss. They faced the painful process of healing, grappling with the betrayal that had shattered their lives. As the town gathered for memorial services, a sense of unity emerged. Neighbors who had once relied on Dawson's protection found strength in one another. Hopewell began to rebuild its sense of community, but the scars of betrayal ran deep. The lingering effects of the corruption within the police department served as a constant reminder of the fragility of trust. The Dawson family's journey toward healing was filled with challenges. Clara sought to honor Joe's legacy by advocating for transparency and integrity within law enforcement. She became a voice for change, determined to ensure that no other family would endure the pain they had experienced. The community rallied around her, motivated to restore faith in the institutions designed to protect them. As the chapter came to a close, reflections on Dawson's life and service filled the air. The community remembered him not only as a dedicated officer but as a father, husband, and friend. Stories of his bravery and kindness spread, weaving a tapestry of remembrance that would endure. While the healing process was slow, the pursuit of justice had provided a measure of solace. Hopewell was beginning to mend, but the lessons learned from this tragedy would resonate for years to come. The question of corruption lingered in the background, but the community remained hopeful. They understood that rebuilding trust would require vigilance and commitment. As the final scenes played out, viewers were left with a poignant reminder of the complexities of justice and healing. How would they cope with such a betrayal? The journey ahead would be long, but the community was determined to honor Dawson's memory by creating a better future, one rooted in integrity, compassion, and resilience. If you enjoyed this investigation, don't forget to subscribe for more cases like this one. Hit the like button if you want to see more twists and mysteries uncovered.